Hello there! Survivors, welcome back to this month's Thursdoid, the one where we like to watch instead of read. But as always, if you'd like to read the post alongside the video, I will leave a link in the description for you. Before we get stuck in, I have a bit of my own news I'd like to share with you. We now have our very own community server, so if you're on the hunt for a community with a welcoming bunch of people, there will be a link in the description for you to get access. And without further ado, let's dive straight in. This month's Thursdoid seems largely focused on polishing and balancing things that were previously announced, with a few interesting gameplay changes that could very well shape the way we play PZ as a whole. As you can probably guess, it's also heavily focused on the crafting overhaul, which was the major thing holding back the release of Build 42 Unstable Beta. In last month's post, the team spoke about recruiting some additional manpower from their friends over at TEA Games, specifically to bolster the crafting team and help them push out the updates faster. So far, it looks like they have been of help, but have largely been getting to grips with the code and documenting it. This documentation will then become the guidelines for the modding community when Build 42 gets released. These are all rather important steps. As I said before, when Build 42 lands, we most likely will be playing vanilla Build 42 for quite a while, until modders update their mods for Build 42. So having the proper documentation for them will help speed up that transition period. Aside from the newcomers from TEA, there's also been some work done on animations for crafting station interactions. Unfortunately, as it stands in Build 42, we won't see the physical movement of a player or a crafting station when we interact with it, like a potter's wheel won't spin, for example. However, if the team one day decides to include 3D models on the game map, furniture pieces will remain static as they have always been. In light of this, the team is currently working on natural player movement towards the crafting stations, which will in turn open up the relevant crafting menu. Of course, these will be refined further as things go along, with things like depth textures to avoid clipping issues already being added and more. So this brings us on to something rather important, and that is some further information regarding the new skills coming with the crafting overhaul. With all the new crafting methods like blacksmithing, leatherworking, etc. being added, naturally there will be a plethora of new skills for us to level. The issue that can arise is that the skills list will then become extremely long. So the team has been trying to work out the best ways to separate out the new skills without unnecessarily slimming down the skill list and lumping the skills together. Here is a sneak peek of what the skill list is currently looking like. Obviously, we as the player won't need to level all of them unless in very niche circumstances, like rebuilding civilization for example, but it sets the tone for a better endgame experience. Don't be alarmed at the large list of skills. There will be sandbox settings that we can tweak to help us progress faster. Sandbox settings will now cater for adjustments to individual skill XP multipliers, so we could in effect increase multipliers for a handful of difficult to level skills and leave the others as is. I'm looking at you, Electrical and Nimble. Now, down to something that I think will be massively game-changing. They are addressing unfun gameplay loops by removing XP gain from scrapping, dismantling, and ripping items. Before we grab our pitchforks and start a riot, let's dive into why this actually may be a good thing. A common complaint from server admins, myself included, is that server maps quickly turn into lands devoid of furniture and precious loot containers due to players chasing their skill grind. It's not entirely the player's fault either, as this has always been a reliable way to level a host of core skills fairly quickly, but of course a certain etiquette should reign supreme when it comes to loot containers if the server has loot respawns turned on. So to combat this, they have made the previously mentioned change, as they don't want progression to be focused on destroying the map, but instead focused on making things. XP gain from actions like building structures and repairing clothes has been properly adjusted to account for that, and there is of course the ability to individually adjust the XP gain in the sandbox settings to help compensate for this change. However, with all of the changes taken into consideration, XP for dismantling car wrecks and electrical items still remains, at least for the present moment. So all in all, these changes will help create more engaging gameplay loops, like making / crafting things instead of just mindlessly running around destroying things to level up, which could add to the boredom that a lot of people can experience in playthroughs. I know, I've been there. There have been more skills added for wilderness-focused playstyles, namely napping and carving. No, not our favorite activity to do in a day, I'm talking about napping with a K, which is the process of creating stone blades from chunks of flint you can find in the world, for crafting knives, spears, axes, and other tools. Carving, as you probably would have guessed, involves carving wood and bone for similar use cases. With carving, however, you could also create decorative items, especially at lower levels of the skill, allowing you to make use of more artistic and eye-pleasing crafting recipes that will be added to help you level up instead of crafting the same stick over and over again. The new crafting overhaul brings with it a host of new recipes, all with the new crafting disciplines. So, the team has been improving how recipes will work and how they will be learned. Many recipes will now come with an auto-learn requirement, meaning when you reach a certain level in a particular skill, or even in a combination of skill levels, you will automatically know them. In addition to this, recipe schematics that we can find in and around the world will be largely diagram-based, which means those of us who take illiterate in our playthroughs can also make use of them. It's a nice little quality of life feature that won't make illiterate seem so daunting. Alrighty, moving on to the upcoming basements. As you may know, there will be two types of basement structures for us to explore, random ones and those that are permanent. In terms of permanent ones, there will be things like bunkers, tunnels, and even cave networks for us to check out. And of course, simple lower floors of the general locations we see in our day-to-day. Here's an image showing two things. One, marking all the potential locations for the random basement areas on a basic level. The other is showing a brand new town coming to the map, which the team calls Brandenburg. It seems like there may be other towns, but this hasn't been confirmed yet, but so far it's looking really good. In the footage that has been playing, the team was testing and showcasing how the same location can have a different basement on a different run. Granted, they aren't the most exciting basements, but this will probably be the case for most of the basements we come across, especially the residential ones. So there's been some good news regarding the new GrappleTech system that the team has been working on. For those of you who maybe aren't aware, GrappleTech is an update to PZ's animation system that will allow two characters to interact directly with each other, allowing for interactions like dragging corpses and throwing them out of the window, all in one fluid motion. The good news is that GrappleTech is pretty much done. As we've seen in previous dev blogs, the first intended use case of GrappleTech was to address the clunkiness surrounding carrying, moving, and disposing of bodies. There was also an unimplemented, heavily work-in-progress animation of the player chucking a dead body out of the window. Now, this has been added into the GrappleTech system and is looking a lot more polished than previously shown. They did make mention that they are aware that the falling of the corpse doesn't look as good as it should be, but it will be addressed in the future. At the moment, the body dragging and window chucking isn't in the internal test build, but will be required at some point for the upcoming crafting overhaul, due to it allowing for more direct animations with crafting stations. Initially, the implementation of GrappleTech wasn't set to be part of the unstable beta, but now that it's done and feels playable, there's a strong potential it may be added in for the unstable, but this will be dependent on the progress made by the crafting team. As always, the team rounds off the dev blog with a few pieces of information that don't really fit in the other categories. Firstly, newspapers have now been finalized. This nice little addition to PZ's lore has spent this week being checked through for authenticity by a local American news journalist. After the relevant edits have been made, they will make their way into the game's loot tables. They also weren't too happy with how deer were predictably following their predefined paths through forests. So, with the zoning and biome work now complete, the next step will be to create multiple pathways for wildlife to organically navigate, making hunting a bit more challenging and, let's face it, way more fun. The sound team has once again been hard at work to provide noises for the new items, weapons, and the upcoming altitudes. The team has given them freedom to create building-specific tones compared to before where they could only generalize sound tones using a handful of them. In a nutshell, this freedom will allow them to create much more immersive atmospheres in various buildings like large churches or movie theaters, for example. And lastly, in combination with the lighting changes and the upcoming Mildra glow up, which is looking damn sexy if I may say, in the footage that has been playing they have now showcased these changes. If Mildra is looking this good, I cannot wait to see the rest of the map. And that's it for the dev blog. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, check out the link in the description to get access to the server. Thank you to my awesome patrons for your support. Good luck out there, Survivor, and I will see you in the next one.